We often think history is, just a straight line of facts, but it's really more like trying to put together a puzzle, right?
Exactly. And sometimes the pieces themselves, the sources, they're pretty complex too.
Which brings us to today. We're doing a deep dive into a really interesting source, a book called Guru Kian Sakhian. That's Tales of the Sikh Gurus.
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating one. This version we're looking at, it's an English adaptation by Pritpal Singh Bindra, and it has this great introduction and notes by Pal Singh Purawal.
Right.
It gives us this glimpse into the lives of the Sikh Gurus, but it's a glimpse you definitely need to look at carefully.
Okay, so what's our goal here today? What are we trying to figure out?
Basically, we want to get a handle on what this book is. Who put it together? Where did it supposedly come from? What kind of stories does it tell?
Kind of laying the groundwork.
Precisely. Think of it as getting the essential info before you dive deeper, like watching the trailer before the movie.
Gotcha. And you mentioned tales. It's not like a standard history book.
Not really, no. It's a collection of sakhian, which are, basically stories or anecdotes about the gurus.
Okay.
And if you just glance at the contents, you see this huge variety.
Yeah, I was looking earlier, stuff like Ram Rai's trip to Delhi, specific stories about Guru Harkrishan.
Mm-hmm. And accounts of Guru Gobind Singh's battles, too. It really covers a lot.
So quite a range.
It definitely does. The focus is mostly on the time from Guru Hargobind through to Guru Gobind Singh. And, maybe the first big question that pops up is, who actually wrote it? And where did it even come from?
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. It's attributed to someone called Bhai Swaroop Singh Kaushish. What do we know about him?
Right, so Bhai Swaroop Singh Kaushish is thought to have been a Pat.
A Pat? What's that?
Pats were, they were like dards, you could say. A community that traditionally kept genealogical records, family trees, essentially. And they also wrote eulogies, poems praising their patrons. The tradition was these Bhats would visit their clients, their patrons, usually after a harvest season or something, and record important family events, births, deaths, marriages, that sort of thing.
In their own records.
Exactly. In their personal vahis, their registers.
So the idea behind Guru Kian Sakhian is that it comes from those Bhat vahis, these family records.
That's the claim, yes.
Yeah.
The book itself suggests Bhai Swaroop Singh drew heavily on these ancestral Pat records.
Interesting.
And what's also quite interesting is the original language. It wasn't Gurmukhi, which most people associate with Sikh scriptures today.
Oh, what was it then?
It was apparently written in something called Batakri, which is a form of Devanagari script, but get this, without the vowel symbols.
Wait, no vowels? How would you even read that?
You'd have to infer them. Imagine trying to read English with just the consonants. It adds, quite a layer of interpretation, doesn't it?
Definitely. So how did it get from that script, Patakri, to something readable today?
Well, the story goes that in 1868, a descendant of the author, a man named Chaju Singh, actually converted the text into Gurmukhi script.
Okay, so that makes sense. A Gurmukhi version.
Yes, but, and here's where it gets a bit murky, like a historical mystery. Neither that original Batakri version, nor that first Gurmukhi conversion by Chaju Singh, they don't exist anymore. They're lost.
Seriously, both of them?
Both gone. No longer extant, as they say.
Wow. That's a pretty big gap, isn't it? It sort of immediately makes you question the chain of custody, the direct link back to the original.
It absolutely does. You lose that direct connection, and questions about accuracy inevitably creep in.
That's
like the first vital clues in a case file are missing.
So the version we have now, where did that come from?
Okay, so the version that's generally available today is said to be a copy. It was apparently made by a scholar named Gianni Garja Singh.
A copy from where?
He supposedly copied it from another version that was owned by a Sant Gurdat Singh. And then Gianni Garja Singh's copy was later edited by Pyar Singh Padam, another scholar.
So multiple steps removed.
Exactly. You've got layers of copying, potentially editing, and the earliest links in that chain are just gone.
Okay, let me see if I've got this straight. We're looking at a copy of a conversion.
Right.
Of an original text.
Supposedly.
That was itself supposedly based on even older family records, the Vahis, none of which we can actually look at directly today.
You've got it. That's the situation.
Yeah.
And it definitely means we have to be thoughtful when we look at the actual content.
Which, as you said, is pretty broad, covering that period from Guru Hargobind to Guru Gobind Singh.
Yes, and the types of stories are really diverse.
Can you give us a couple more examples, just to get a better feel for what's inside?
Sure. Let's see, Sakhi number 6, for instance, talks about Guru Har Rai traveling in Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
Then you jump ahead to Sakhi number 58, and that narrates the creation of the Khalsa, a huge event.
Right, foundational.
Absolutely. And another really significant one is Sakhi number 112. This describes the moment Guru Gobind Singh invested the Adi Granth, the Holy Scripture, with guruship, making the book the living guru.
A pivotal moment.
Hugely pivotal.
Yeah.
So you see, it's this mixed travels, major historical events, important declarations and teachings.
It really does sound like a mixed bag. So given this whole backstory, the lost originals, the layers of copying, what are the big red flags, the main concerns about, authenticity and accuracy?
Yeah, that's the crucial part we need to address. Because while Guru Kian Sakhian offers all this detail, it runs into, significant challenges when you try to check its stories against other historical sources.
Right.
And verifying the dates it gives, that's another whole area of difficulty.
Can you give some specific examples? Where does this book say something that other accounts just don't back up?
Okay, well, we mentioned Guru Har Rai's supposed travels in Jammu and Kashmir earlier.
Yeah.
That's one. There isn't really corroborating evidence for those extensive travels in other mainstream historical accounts. Similarly, the way it portrays Ram Rai's role after he was essentially estranged from the main Sikh community, that narrative doesn't quite mesh with other versions of events.
Okay.
It also mentions Guru Tegh Bahadur visiting Patna way back in 1656. That date is pretty hotly debated among historians.
So specific events or dates that just seem off?
Exactly. And even something as monumental as the creation of the Khalsa. The book gives the date as 1698.
1598, but isn't it widely accepted as 1699?
Precisely. Vaisakhi 1699 is a generally accepted date. Being off by a whole year on that event, it definitely raises an eyebrow.
Yeah, you'd think they'd get that one right. Is it just about dates and events being different, or is the way things are described sometimes different too?
That's another good point, yes. Sometimes the descriptions of events, the flavor of them, can feel quite distinct from what's become sort of the standard narrative in Sikh tradition.
Like how?
Well, for example, there's a mention of Sahibzada Ajit Singh, Guru Gobind Singh's eldest son, getting married in 1704. Again, that's an event that isn't really confirmed in other major sources. And going back to travels, while the book mentions Guru Gobind Singh also traveling in Jammu and Kashmir, historians haven't really found relics or places strongly associated with his presence there, unlike in other regions he visited.
So it makes you think about maybe the author's perspective, or perhaps how things got passed down.
Exactly. Whose lens are we seeing these events through? And you also mentioned the dates. Can we dig into those discrepancies a bit more?
Yes, the dating issues are quite prominent. The book gives very specific dates, often using the Bikrami calendar system.
Right, but when scholars try to cross-reference these or convert them to the Common Era calendar, inconsistencies often pop up.
Like with Guru Gobind Singh's birth date.
That's a big one, yeah. There are conflicting accounts generally. Some sources, like those referencing Bhai Swaroop Singh, give Posudi 7, 1718 Bikrami. But calculations show the weekday mentioned doesn't match that date. Interestingly, another date, Posudi 4, 1661 CE Old Style, does match the Dhanista Nakshatra, the lunar mansion, which is also sometimes mentioned in connection with his birth.
That's confusing.
It is. And Guru Kian Sakhian itself points towards a birth in December 1661 in Patna. But reconciling all these different dates, the Bikrami ones, the CE conversions, the weekdays, the nakshatras, it highlights just how complex historical dating can be, especially across different calendars and potential errors in recording.
So it's not just one wrong date, it's like a whole tangle of conflicting information.
Pretty much. And the creation of the Khalsa date is another very clear example. As we said, the book states Vaisakhi 1755 Bikrami.
Which is 1698 CE.
Right, a full year before the widely accepted Vaisakhi 1756 Bikrami, which corresponds to 1699 CE.
Okay.
There are also problems when you try to line up the dates the book gives for the completion of certain compositions within the Dasam Granth, like Chitrapakhyan or Krishan Avtar. Well, the dates mentioned in Guru Kian Sakhian sometimes clash not only with dates found within the Dasam Granth itself, but also with how those dates should convert according to standard calendar calculations.
So what does that suggest?
It could suggest a few things. Maybe the author was using a slightly different calendar system. Or maybe errors just crept in over time, during the copying process, or even in the original recording in those values.
It definitely sounds like you wouldn't want to rely on this book alone for building a precise timeline.
No, that would be very risky, definitely problematic. And this is really important, we need to keep a balanced view here.
Okay.
Despite all these challenges, these issues with corroboration and dates. Guru Kian Sakhian also contains unique information, stuff you don't readily find elsewhere.
Okay, so it's not all questionable accounts. What kind of unique things are we talking about?
Well, for example, Sakhi numbers 59 and 60 offer quite a detailed code of conduct for the Khalsa.
Really? Like rules and practices?
Exactly. It gives this fascinating window into early Khalsa life and expectations that might not be laid out so explicitly in other contemporary sources.
That sounds potentially very valuable.
It is. And similarly, Sakhi 112, the one about investing the Adi Granth with guruship.
Yeah.
The specific details it provides about how that happened, the circumstances surrounding it, those details are quite unique to this text.
I see.
And information like that, these unique snippets, they could offer really valuable insights into parts of Sikh history that might otherwise be a bit hazy or less documented.
So even with all the caveats, all the question marks, it might hold clues or details that help fill in some historical gaps.
Precisely. That unique content is what really gives the book its historical value, despite the problems.
Yeah.
That means we can't just dismiss it out of hand. We have to engage with it seriously, but critically.
Okay. So if someone listening is thinking about looking into Guru Kian Sakhian, what's the main takeaway? How should they approach it, knowing all this?
I think the key is to be judicious, cautious, selective. That's the best approach. Meaning, don't treat it as gospel truth, not as an infallible historical record. Instead, see it as a source that might potentially help fill in gaps in our understanding of the Gurus' period.
But always check it against other sources.
Absolutely. Its claims always need careful comparison and evaluation against other, more established historical accounts. Think of it as one potentially interesting, sometimes problematic piece in a much larger historical puzzle.
Right. Okay, so let's quickly summarize for everyone. We've been talking about Guru Kian Sakhian, a collection of tales about the Sikh Gurus. It's attributed to Bhai Swaroop Singh Kaushish, possibly based on older Bhat family records or Vahis. But there's a big issue. The original manuscripts, both in Patakri and the first Gurmukhi version, are lost.
Correct, which raises questions.
And we find discrepancies in some narratives and quite a few dates when compared to other sources.
Yes, definite challenges there.
But at the same time, the book offers unique details, like on the Khalsa Code of Conduct or the investiture of the Adi Granth as Guru, that aren't found elsewhere.
It's exactly, making it valuable but complex.
So a fascinating source, but one that needs a very careful, critical approach.
It sums it up well. It demands thoughtful engagement.
Which kind of leads to a final thought for you, the listener. When we grapple with historical sources like this one, sources with complicated origins, missing pieces, conflicting accounts, what does that tell us about how we actually build our understanding of the past?
Yeah, how do we weigh these different stories? How do we decide what feels reliable?
And what does the fact that history is this ongoing process of discovery and reevaluation mean for the narratives we hold about our own heritage and identity? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought. And, this discussion today, it's really just scratching the surface of Guru Kian Sakhian and the wider history.
Just the start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're interested in the Sikh Gurus, exploring this book alongside other sources, delving deeper, that's where a richer, more nuanced picture really starts to emerge.